Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're having a great week and a great day. I feel like I haven't gone live in a week or so. First, for those of you that don't know me or maybe are new to my page, my name is Jennifer Gauthier. I help elementary ELA teachers, more specifically upper elementary ELA teachers, who struggle with curriculum mapping and planning in order to are of good quality and cover all the teaching standards. So I live in Montreal, Canada, and things are just starting to down here. So restaurants now you can sit on a terrace or a patio. They opened up last Friday. People seem like they're coming out of their cocoons. So I'm kind of struggling right now, if I'm being completely honest, with just balancing everything. And that's why I haven't done a live in a little bit. It's just because I'm trying to, now that life is open and I'm not a hermit living in my apartment, I can actually go out and see people and do things. I kind of have to like change my mindset and kind of balance my schedule between work and then my business on the side. Because before it was really just, there was no option. Like I would go home and work on my business or, relax. But now that there's more options, I kind of have to redirect my focus and be more disciplined, I guess you could say. Today, I released a blog post yesterday all about dealing with anxious writers. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, how to overcome writing anxiety in your students. So you might not know this about me, but I actually worked, before I worked at the school I'm at right now, I actually worked at a literacy center, which served adults who struggled with literacy skills, so reading and writing. And I was kind of in charge of managing the volunteer tutors that would work with these adults. And it was really interesting. I got to learn a lot about writing anxiety from that experience. Because I've always been passionate about reading and writing, I never really thought about what it would be like to be someone who has writing anxiety, meaning that so nervous to write that you kind of just avoid it. So that was very interesting for me to learn more about. And now that I'm back in the classroom, I've been back in the classroom since working at that literacy center for 2.5 years now, and I can see writing anxiety in my students who are in grades 4 and 5. So it's interesting to compare that between adults that have writing anxiety and young students that have writing anxiety, and I can really see, if it's not addressed in that early age, how that could kind of carry over into adulthood. So I'm very passionate about this topic, so I was excited to write a blog post about it, and I'm excited to talk about it here today. If you are not aware of what writing anxiety is or looks like, it's basically when you have like such an anxiety towards writing that you pretty much just avoid it. And if you're kind of thinking, well, maybe there's like this one student, maybe they have writing anxiety, some of the things that to look for is that they won't write. You'll give a writing assignment and they'll basically by the end of the class, their page is pretty much blank or it's very minimal in terms of their writing. And one thing that I learned from working at this literacy center was that I kind of had to put myself in the mind of someone who did have writing anxiety. It's much easier to read something. Like if you're reading something, yes, you have that struggle with reading, but reading, it's the work is there and you're just reading it. Whereas writing, you're the one in charge of producing the work. So it's much more intimidating for a student, especially a young student who might be struggling with literacy skills, to then give them a blank piece of paper and tell them that they actually have to produce something. So that can be quite triggering or nerve-wracking for these students. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, is like how to overcome writing anxiety. I've included here in the description live, I included a link to the blog post. So if you're interested, did I include it? No, I didn't, but I will afterwards. I also have created a free resource, which is the roadmap to curriculum mapping success. So if you're looking in curriculum mapping and planning for next year, please click that link and get the free resource if you haven't done so already. I'd be curious to know if you are already done school. So right now it's June 1st. So please comment if you are already done school. I follow a lot of Americans, and I know that a lot of them are already done school. So very jealous of you if you are. I'm done on our last day for students, I believe, is June 22nd. So we're in the final stretch. We're getting there. But yeah, right now it's report card writing time. So it's very chaotic at my school. So let's jump into some of the tips I have for you and some things you could do instead of assigning something like an essay for your students that have writing anxiety. So some things I like to give students who are struggling with writing and really like have an aversion to writing, especially those longer pieces like a descriptive writing, a narrative, an expository essay, is I really try and modify it, because there's nothing worse than if you have such anxiety towards writing and told that you have to write a 3-page essay, let's say, and you're just forcing students like that into doing something like an expository essay. You're not going to get the results. And there are alternatives that you could be doing that you can actually get a lot of their thoughts down on paper without having to make it a formal essay. So some things I like to do are mind maps. Or even having them create flashcards where they're putting their ideas down, and it's a smaller piece of paper, so it's less intimidating. So you can have them create flashcards, and maybe you could even do like a flashcard for each paragraph. If it's an expository essay you're expecting them to write, you can have them chunk it into flashcards, like cue cards. Another one would be a storyboard. So if your students are writing a narrative, and you have a student that really is not keen on writing a whole narrative, you can have them create a storyboard where it's like an image that they can draw, and then it's like 1 or 2 sentence underneath describing. And so you still get to get like the standards that you need to cover when it comes to narratives, like sequencing. You would still get that in a storyboard. It would just be less intimidating for them. Another one would be a speech. You might have a student that is really is not down to write, but they're really into public speaking. So they could maybe perform a speech for you instead. It could be a graphic novel. I know in terms of readers, graphic novels are very appealing because it is less words on the page. So if you're doing a writing activity, you could then have them create their own graphic novel. What else? You can also have them do a gallery walk where they would make a collage, and then you could do a collage, and then they could even, if you have a few students that are struggling, they could be posting it, and then they would have to walk around and see other people's work, which is also a great way to brainstorm before the writing process. One resource that I have created myself, because I found it was very helpful for my students, is something called weekly paragraph writing, where students are in charge of just writing 1 paragraph a week. I've talked about this resource before. It's probably the most popular in my TPT store, so people really seem to like it. And basically what it is, for some reason Facebook doesn't let me share my screen, and so I can't actually show it to you, but I've included the link in the description of this live. Basically what it is each week students are working, they're given a topic that is already provided for you in the resource. So let's say it's something like, what would a 5th season look like? So you get to design what a 5th season would look like. And so that 1 week they would work on that 1 whole paragraph. So the Monday would be brainstorming, Tuesday would be, I believe, drafting, then they would be editing their work, and then they get to show their work on the last day. And I really find this is helpful because it really takes the pressure away, I find. If you're telling your students that they only need to write 1 paragraph, it's a lot less intimidating than an entire essay. So if you're interested in that resource, I have left the link there for you to check out. It is on Google Drive, which makes it a lot easier because you can literally just post the link on Google Classroom, and it forces students to make their own copy. And that way too, that some students don't actually like writing because maybe they struggle with handwriting, so they just avoid writing altogether. But the fact that it's on Google Drive is a lot easier too, because maybe they would enjoy typing more than writing. That's just something that you would have to kind of test and see. If you provide a digital assignment versus a pen and paper assignment, you can see, well, maybe this student is more keen on doing a digital activity. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. I personally haven't used this resource in the school I'm at right now because we are a departmentalized school, meaning I only have my students for 1 hour a day. So if I did something like paragraph writing, that would take up like almost half my time each day. But if you're working at a school where you have students for full days, I'm also in Quebec where there's French is a big portion of the education. But if you're somewhere like in the States, then you probably have ELA all day, every day. So not all day, every day. I know there's other subjects, but you would have them for fuller blocks of time. So that something like paragraph writing where they focus on like for a half hour a day on just working on one paragraph, that might be something that would work for your situation. So if you're interested in that resource, please go check it out. I'd be very curious to know if you do have students in your classroom that do have writing anxiety. Please comment below saying that you do have those students in your class, and maybe you could share some strategies that have been helpful for you. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be going live again on Thursday. So I look forward to seeing you there. Have a wonderful day. Bye.